Hey there, and welcome back to our Read Through the Bible in a Year series. Here we are at week 2, day 5, bringing us to the end of our second week. I hope your reading has just been going really well, and just that it's been a very sweet time for you and God to be spending that time together, reading God's Word and thinking about it. So today our reading is Genesis chapter 41 through 45, where we really get in to the story of Joseph as he is risen to power by God in the country of Egypt, becomes the second in command, and has the reunion with his brothers. So in this story, we could definitely spend time talking about what God is doing and how God is using and working in Joseph's life to put him in a place where he can be a blessing to the nations as this famine happens. But we'll talk more about that with the next day's reading. Today I really want to focus on the story of forgiveness that happens between Joseph and his brothers. By the time in our story that Joseph's brothers come to Egypt for the first time, in chapter 42, when Jacob sends them to Egypt to try to find food because the famine has been going on now, and it has made its way all the way into the land of Canaan. By this time, approximately at least 20 years have gone by, somewhere between 20 and 22 years probably. And if you do a careful reading, you can see that. You see where Joseph was 17 when it first started, when everything first started happening with his story, and that the Bible tells us he was 30 at the time he became second in command in Egypt. And then the 7 years of abundance had happened, and now we were into the famine years. So at least 20 years had gone by, 20 to 22 years had gone by. And now the brothers come face to face once again with Joseph. Of course, they don't realize it at first, but Joseph immediately recognizes his brothers and knows what's going on here. And so we're confronted with a couple things. What is Joseph going to do with this? How is he going to respond? How is he going to react? Remembering what these brothers had done to him, how they had talked about killing him, and then how they had sold him into slavery, how they had just discarded him as their brother. So how is Joseph going to respond to this? And Joseph, it seems like Joseph is almost seeking revenge, but when we really read it carefully, that's not what's going on here. What's going on here is Joseph is testing his brothers. He's trying to see if they have dealt with what they did all those years ago, and if they have changed any. Now the reality is, I think at the beginning of this story, I think it's pretty safe to say that they really haven't dealt with what they've done all those years ago, and that they haven't really sought forgiveness. Because obviously they've kept the lie up to their father, Jacob, all these years about what happened to their brother. And they kind of come face to face with this, that when all this story starts unfolding, where they basically say, surely we are being punished because of our brother. They're coming face to face with what they did all those years before, and that they never truly sought forgiveness for. But over the course of the story, we see a change happen, where Joseph eventually gets it to where Benjamin, who is the new favorite son of Jacob, being the youngest, being the other son of his favorite wife Rachel after Joseph, we see where Benjamin has kind of become Jacob's new favorite. And Benjamin is who Joseph wants them to bring to Egypt, because Joseph wants to see how they're going to handle this new favorite son, the youngest son. Are they going to try to take care of him, or are they going to forget about him just like they did Joseph? And we see a change happen, and we see it where Judah kind of is the spokesman for it, where Judah speaks up, and he says to Joseph, after it has appeared that Benjamin has stolen Joseph's cup, and that Benjamin will be kept as a slave, where Judah offers to take Benjamin's place. Where Judah says to Joseph, even though he doesn't know it's Joseph, please let your servant remain here as my Lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return home with his brothers. How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? No, do not let me see the misery that would come upon my father. You know, it's interesting as you think about that. When they did what they did to Joseph all those years before, they didn't care about their father either, because it brought great misery on their father, and that didn't bother them either. But now they don't want to bring this misery on their father. They don't want Benjamin to have to stay there. Judah steps up, and Judah offers to take his place. And at this point, Joseph reveals himself. At this point, he realizes that his brothers have changed, that they are different than they were before, that they are willing to sacrifice, and they are willing to protect their father and to protect their youngest brother, Benjamin. And we have this great scene of this great reunion where Joseph reveals himself, and now they're going to go back and get dad and get the whole family, and everybody's going to come live in Egypt and be taken care of by Joseph. As I looked at this story and thought about forgiveness, it kind of brought three questions to my mind that I want to ask myself, and I want us to ask ourselves today. And my first question is this: are there things in our life that we still need to seek forgiveness for? Whether it's recent things or whether it's things from a long time ago. I mean, here we had 20 years go by where these brothers had really not sought forgiveness, and they had not resolved that. They had not asked to be forgiven for what they had done. Are there still things in our life that we need to seek forgiveness for? If so, we need to ask God about those things. God, reveal to us anything like that in our lives, and then God, please forgive me, and please, as possible, help me to seek forgiveness from those I need to. Second question it brings to mind, I think, maybe not so much a question, but just something that we can do. There may be sin in our past that we have dealt with, that we have sought forgiveness for, but you know, we still feel guilt over. We still feel remorse over and sorrow over. It still kind of plagues us, even though we know God has forgiven us. We're not that person that we used to be. You know, God has changed us, and He's made us new people. He's forgiven us, and He's brought us to a new place where we're not like that person who's did those things in our past. But what I want to just encourage us there is to continue to mourn over past sin that we know we've been forgiven for, but instead to celebrate that we know that God has and is constantly changing us and working in our lives, and creating us and calling us to be new people, to be people more and more looking like Him. So let's seek forgiveness where we need to, but let's allow and celebrate where God has forgiven us and where God has changed us and shaped us into new people. And then the final thing that it just made me think about is to be on guard against a repetitive cycle of the same sin. To be on guard against the repetitive cycle of the same sin. What Joseph was trying to see here is if his brothers would repeat the same sin they had done earlier. If they would forget about and kind of sell out their youngest brother and just leave him there and go on home. Would they do that? Would they repeat this? Even though they had promised their father they would take care of him, would they leave him behind? And they didn't. They had changed. They were new people. But it just cautions us that sometimes we get caught with a particular sin that we seem to just repeat over and over again, and we don't seem to get past it. So my challenge for all of us there is two things. It'd be number one, to figure out why. Figure out why this keeps getting us. Is there a certain temptation that keeps catching us? Do we put ourselves in the same position over and over again that makes it easy to give into this sin? Have we really not dealt with seeking forgiveness for it and talking to God about it? Figure out why we keep repeating it. And then number two, once we have kind of figured out some reasons we may be repeating it, take some steps to address that. Okay, if I know this is the trigger, the temptation that draws me into this, then what do I need to do to avoid that? So don't just say, oh, there's nothing I can do about this. Don't just say, well, I figured it out, but I don't know what to do about it. Talk to God. Say, God, give me some steps. Give me some things to do. Help me, God, to get past this. So today, as we look at this story and we celebrate the change that had happened, that God had done in the lives of Joseph's brother, as we celebrate the fact that Joseph was willing to forgive them, may we um, seek forgiveness for things that we need to seek forgiveness for. Um, may we ask God to show us those things that we need to deal with. Then, once we have been forgiven, may we celebrate that God forgives, and may we celebrate that God is constantly changing us and molding us more and more into what He wants us to look like. May we celebrate that fact. And then may we look for those repetitive sins in our life that we don't seem to be able to get rid of, and may we, with God's help, just try to root out the causes of those and then take the steps to address those things. Right? Remember, God promises us that if we ask for forgiveness and we truly mean it, that He will forgive us, that He will give us the strength we need to resist temptation, that He will give us the strength we need to break any cycle of sin that we catch ourselves in. So talk to God about it if you need to. All right, y'all have a great night. Bye.